Good evening, St. Louis, and welcome into Boots on the Ground, live on STL Sports Central. If you're new here, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you know whenever we're going live, like we did today twice when it came to the Cardinals trade deadline, before everything broke and then after everything broke. We were live right here on STL Sports Central because it's the one place you need for all your St. Louis sports coverage. And anytime you want to be tapping in, we got content for you, whether it's Bernie Miklasz talking Cardinals, me and Will talking a little bit of St. Louis City, or some of our amazing staff talking St. Louis Blues. We're going to have it for you all year round, including every week talking a little St. Louis City SC right here with my good friend Will Bratton. Will, we got a lot of soccer to talk about this week, which is good because we got an off weekend. How was a heavy soccer week for you?
It was busy. Heavy is definitely an understatement. You host Minnesota at home, and then 4 days later, you're hosting a Prem club. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. Losing wasn't fun, especially against Minnesota. Losing by the same scoreline you lost to Minnesota against a Prem club is pretty cool.
That's a good way
that
to
was
look
a
at
fun
it.
game.
All right, that's a fair way to look at it. I'll take that. I'll take that.
So I mean, I had a good time. Getting to see some world-class players play in our stadium was pretty freaking cool, for lack of better words. It was awesome. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a good show. Honestly, City played pretty well, all things considered, like surprisingly well. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. But overall, a good week, and we got to see Fallu fall, so that made me happy.
Yeah, we did get to see Fallu fall, and we'll be talking more about that match against Aston Villa. That really was a special night. It was fun last night down at Energizer Park, getting to see an EPL team. Not for the first time in St. Louis, but for the first time at Energizer Park. The second time we've really seen a big Euro club following Bayer Leverkusen. So, but let's track back 5 days to Saturday night, because we still got to do a little reaction. Obviously, we always have our City Central post game after every City game, and we did on Saturday night. You can go back and watch the initial reaction. But now that we've gotten to do the rewatch of that Minnesota game, obviously the penalty kicks are going to mar things. Anything jump out to you as you went back in and hit some of the big notes from that Minnesota matchup?
I mean, the biggest thing is just St. Louis playing a decent match, but they can't put together 90 minutes. There's always some little period in there where there's a bunch of mistakes, and you get situations like a couple of unlucky, in quotes, PKs. Obviously, Durkin's penalty was, I don't know what he's doing. It was a bad situation from the center mids. It was a bad situation from Durkin. It was a bad situation for St. Louis City. It resulted in a penalty. But the Orozco one, that one's pretty unlucky, but unlucky things happen when you put yourself in positions to get unlucky consistently. And St. Louis always find ways to do that. And so, I mean, it's hard for me to blame Hazy for that, except for the fact that maybe the ball doesn't accidentally hit your hand if you keep your hand down.
There's
help.
There's not it's hard to find any room
right.
on the Orozco one. You just got to be smarter in the box. Your hand can't be going up like that. You're not Diego. It's not going to work out in your favor like it did then. So he's got to have better presence of mind. It's a big mistake by Yaziel Orozco. There's no doubt about that one. You brought up the Durkin play and things like that, and I'm just going to move us right along to our first City circuit of this episode, where we try to get into what happened. And before we dive in, here was David Critchley in the post-game press conference breaking down what happened on that play.
Chris, he's gonna feel extremely disappointed and guilty. But again, I said this last week, it wasn't Chris's fault. There was actually a moment higher up the field where one of our forwards missed the pressing moment. He shouldn't have pressed the moment. He did. They played around it too easy, and then all of a sudden they're in our box. So yes, Chris made an error today, but there was 3 or 4 errors before that in that phase of the game that other players made. And that was disappointing for me, because I was very clear with the moments we should press and the moments we shouldn't. And we chose the wrong moment to press when we clearly shouldn't have.
Okay, and so David Critchley, obviously his job is not naming who made that mistake. But one of the fun things we're going to do on City Circuit is we're going to dive into these plays and find out exactly what happened. So let's tap in to what happened on that play, because like I said, we are probably going to point some fingers here. So let's take a look at this play here, and I got it right here for everybody on the screen. And so let's get back to the original setting. So what we got here is obviously Minnesota's in their back 3, back 5, however you want to call it. And I'm going to call it a back three and a back five. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. So they have that going right there. City's in their pretty much basic set. Nothing special about it here. The ball's with their middle center back. This is after they had made some changes, and so maybe there was some confusion in the man marking because Minnesota had one of their center middies move out to wing back. They had one of their other center middies drop back to center back. They had people shifting around and things like that. But the bottom line, it's pretty clear where this plays goes wrong, because as we start things out here, the ball's going to go out to the left center back. Bescher is going to make about a 20-yard run. He's going to make a pretty past Bescher to Anthony Marcanic, former St. Louis City SC defender, who's playing in his proper position of a left wing back and a back five. He's got all this space. Ustarak can't cover because you saw Ustarak's kind of in the middle here. He tries to cover a little bit, but he's not going to be able to. And now Marcanic's got, look at this, easy, just a 40-yard pass with all green in between. Leuven's not back deep enough. Ostrak's not back deep enough. Volum's not stepping up. Baumgartel and Durkin actually have pretty good coverage on this striker here in the central. It's just the ball comes up. It somehow Durkin makes a weird step up. The ball's in the air. He makes a great play. And then obviously we have the giant mistake. So clearly here, to Critch's point, obviously Durkin makes a mistake, but it all starts when you just shouldn't be pressing when there's this kind of gap. And Volum's here. He's obviously have to stays back here because you have their left midi in an attacking position. Ostrak's in a center spot trying to take away the middle of the field, so he can't be dragging out here to the flank. And this is just an unadvised press by Bescher, and that really starts everything. Obviously, if Durkin doesn't pull him down, we're not talking about this, but this is why David Critchley highlights the moment he does with the mistaken press.
Yeah, and the other thing I do want to highlight here is Tomas Ostrak kind of has to follow Bescher on this press when he gets caught in no man's land. Where he's standing on the pitch right now is the absolute worst place you can be as a midfielder because it's so easy to play around you. And as a result, Leuven has to shift more centrally, and now he's also in a no man's land position. So it's way too easy for Minnesota. And it all starts with Bescher taking a bad press. Now, to be fair, Tomas Ostrak could have recognized that and decided not to follow that press and just allowed Bescher's line to get broken, but held centrally and stayed, in front of Durkin here with that left mid. Maybe things go slightly better. I don't really think it changes anything. But had Minnesota taken a different route, that might have been, a better decision from Ostrak there. But overall, this whole situation kind of starts with, the ability to break the lines with one single pass and then a half turn and a 40-yard pass to the striker's feet. Now, obviously, Durkin makes a mistake in that one-on-one situation, like Rock mentioned, but, to David Critchley's point, it didn't start with him. It's not like he passed the ball to the striker in possession and just gave him a slot and then had to foul. This was a play that was developed because St. Louis got broken down with two passes, and that can't happen.
Yeah, and just there's just no reason. Bescher has to know, and I think part of it's not just that Bescher has to know that this isn't a smart press. Klaus and Hartl aren't on their horse at all, which means that there's a pretty easy back pass. The goalkeeper's right there as well. He has too many options here, and Bescher just has to know that he's leaving, like you said, he's leaving Ostrak and Volum just completely wide open on that left flank by allowing this to happen. And so that's I just wanted to do a quick little pivot to let everyone, to kind of dive into one of the biggest mistakes on the game. And, I'm not trying to blame anybody, but just pointing out where the mistakes can happen. And it's less about putting blame on Bescher, who
right.
Is usually active in the press, and this time it was to a fault. It's more about pointing out how you can't always focus on the Durkin moment of a play. Sometimes you got to backtrack and focus on the Bescher moment of the play. And that's the kind of things we're trying to show you here on Boots on the Ground. Let's keep moving on here because I have a couple other points in our different city circuits. We're going to move on to our next city circuit. I'm calling this one No Holding Back because something I talked about with David Critchley.
Rock always creative with the names.
Always got to get creative with the names, ladies and gentlemen. You got to get creative with the words. Have a little fun. One thing we talked about with David Critchley over the last two games against Dallas is their inability to break down the middle of these teams. And what we're seeing because Minnesota play a more reserved kind of game where they're sitting back more, we've seen City pushing up pretty far. And part of that, they're pushing it pretty far, but part of that has also led to them not being able to crack down the middle because those teams are sitting in. And I talked to David Critchley before the Aston Villa game or following the Dallas game or Minnesota game about how they've been playing lately and their struggles getting the ball in the middle. And I'll show you how it connects to my no holding back title here on the subject. Here's David Critchley, again, talking about their struggles against these set-in defenses.
2 games, we faced, I would say, a very compact 5-4-1, compact 5-2-3. So very, very tight defenses in FC Dallas and Minnesota. So we knew them central areas were actually going to be areas we couldn't play today. But in them moments, you try to encourage Klaus or Cello or, Edu maybe, hey, in this game, the tactics and the best moments actually to go around this structure and find balls into the box, which I was very, very happy with in the first half. But they put more pressure on us in the wide areas in the second half. So that does open up space in the midfield. And that's where we couldn't just, flip that trigger really quick and go more central. So it was a design to go around their structure quite a lot today. We had great success in the first half at it, just didn't execute in the second half tonight.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think we have to be aware of the push and pull of what we're seeing with St. Louis City. And I'm going to bring a couple stills and a couple videos from Minnesota and even a couple against Aston Villa to show you how far they're pushing up. And the reason why I want to kind of talk about that is because I don't know if they're going to be able to do that in the majority of these next 11 games, because can you push 6 and 7 consistently into the attack when a team is playing a mid block or trying to press you high? I don't think they're going to be able to get away with it. But I did kind of want to highlight how they have been playing against these low blocks, because David Critchley was hoping to see more possession or how they would play against a team that was playing more active with a higher press, with more possession against Aston Villa. And for the most part, we still saw City being able to get away with pushing 5 and 6 into the attack consistently. And I that shocked me. I wouldn't have expected that against teams that are a little bit better. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe we can see, as I'm saying here, maybe we can see City continue with the no holding back moves. What do you think, Will?
You know what? I like the idea of kind of dumping numbers forward at times, but you have to be so careful with it. And to Critchley's point, when they had the flanks, kind of working in the first half, this is fantastic stuff we're about to look at here with these maps. This will kind of almost articulate my point for me. But when you have the flanks working in the first half of the match, and then all of a sudden Minnesota decides to change their game plan because they're getting worked on the flanks, like you need to have your plan B, and the players need to be ready for that. And Critchley was kind of implying that they were that they needed to flip that switch and go centrally, but they couldn't. They just were unable to do that. And so I don't know. I mean, I like to see the numbers going forward. I like to see the higher press and getting numbers in the press, but it does come at a cost sometimes. And honestly, the Durkin example is a great example of that. And if you're not really in your rhythm against a team in any situation, no matter what kind of formation they're running or what their tactical plan is, you can kind of have those really frightening moments right up the gullet.
And I want to show these passing networks because this is kind of how it developed. This one's the first half into the 61st minute when we start seeing a lot of the changes, and then the full 90 plus. This is against Minnesota. And as you can see, you do get a little bit more centrally, things moving as the game progresses. Things are very much on the flanks on the far left, but as we move left to right here, things do get a little bit more centrally. I do think it's interesting just pointing out passing maps while we're doing it. Klaus, look how deep and central he is. Look where Hartl is in comparison. Look how far up Songbin Jong is, and how far inside he is. Like we've been talking about a lot in the post game about his positioning, which surprised me. Obviously, you can see the right side with Volum up a little bit higher. Ustrak is actually, according to these passing maps, was a little bit deeper than Leuven on average, which kind of surprised me. So just some things I wanted to look at here, and I'm going to shift over to another quick still here because this also shows just an insane level of passing that we were seeing, and I'm trying to figure out which screen I want to show you guys. Sorry.
While he finds that, one thing to point out is the color of the pass between the right center back and the center attacking mid, which is Timo to Cello. And
yeah, that's a good point.
That is a high XT pass. That's a progressive pass almost every time because of how high Cello is playing up the pitch. Those are the types of things we want to see. I want to see that line get thicker. You see how thick the lines are on that far right one, for example, in the right side between Tots and like everyone around him, pretty much, because a lot of passes were going through Tots. It wasn't Tots. It was who was out there at right back? Was it Tots against Minnesota? Yeah, it was Vollum. That's right. Yeah, same against Aston Villa in that first step. Yeah, so a lot going through Vollum. I want to see the same kind of thickness develop and see more of those progressive passes from the center backs.
You know what?
You found that point you were looking for?
Yeah, thank you so much for pointing it out. Though that actually gave me something that I want to mention to people, and that's something you just mentioned, which is just a really quick point about these apps, or about these pictures, which is if it's closer to pink than it is blue, that's a higher XT, and if the line is thicker, that's more passes. So you can also see a very thin line, but pretty pink between Klaus and Celio Pompeu, which I also think is very interesting with their ability to hook up consistently in that game. Yes. So here's what I wanted to show everybody here is another big thing I wanted to show everyone. And this is a still from the Minnesota game, because if you want to look at this one, we have, and we're going to have a little fun.
Here we go. Fancy tools coming out from Rock here.
So the ball's here with Edouard Louven, and just look at this set right here. You have your two center backs back here, balls with Edouard Louven, and then look, bam, 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 3, 4, 5, 6 bodies, all either looking at Edouard Louven or looking towards the goal and trying to make a break. So this is what they're, and then you got a seventh guy who's still able to be a little bit of a wild card. If I remember this play correctly, he pretty much drives into this spot right here. So that's what this team is able to do, and why they've had so many different chances against these teams that have set in, and why I have a little positivity about how this might look against a team that maybe is a little bit better or a little bit more offensive overall, is because, let me find, I think I have one against, thought I had a still against Aston Villa, but I'm blanking on it right now. They were still pushing pretty hard and high against Aston Villa. Here it is, actually. Sorry, I just got so much darn things. I can't keep track of them. I got. Why is this up? Oh no! Hold on a second. Sorry, everybody.
Up too.
Yeah, it did. Things are playing sound when they're not supposed to play sound. Can you hear me again, Will?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to.
We're working through it here. Too many assets. The stream's getting overwhelmed. That's just because we're bringing you this next level analysis here on Boots on the Ground.
Yes, it's completely worth it. Is why the stream's getting a little overwhelmed. So I just had to find mine. So this is a play from early on against Aston Villa last night, and I think again, it's a talented team. You know, they're not pushing high up. You have a play in your own offensive half. So I'm not saying this is a great version, but I'm just saying is when you watch what this team is able to do, and you see what this little right hand side that they're able to make work. If you see here, Edouard Louven is sitting just above his center backs here. This is Sang Bin Jung. This is Tomas Ostrak. This is Konrad Vollum. And you'll see the little trio passing thing they do here over on the right side, the kind of movement they have here. And look at the runs. This is what I want to show you. This is, again, against Aston Villa. This is a Premier League squad you're going up against. And this is almost the exact same build that you had against Minnesota United. 2 center backs, Edouard Louven, and then look, body, going forward.
Even Padelford all the way up there on that left-hand side. I mean, he's there, if Ustrak's is streaking up the middle right now, if he gets in here, gets a shot on net, Martinez pushes it aside, a guy like Pompeu or Padelford, he might be there to tap in that rebound. You just have all these goal-scoring mentality players. And I love that from this team. That's something, we didn't have it under Olaf Melberg, at least. So Critchley instilling some goal-scoring drive into this team.
6 players on that line is just, that is insane when you look at this. 6 players in this circle pushing forward. Leuven undercooks this pass, and this defender is able to get it. But I mean, just look at this. Like, just stop it right here. This is how they were pushing forward in a set, offensive half possession against an EPL team. It didn't come to anything, but this kind of aggressiveness, as I say there, not holding back. I don't know about you guys, but this is the kind of stuff that gets me a little bit excited if I'm a St. Louis City fan. If I'm thinking about my ability, this team's ability to attack going forward against teams that aren't always just sitting back, that have a little bit more skill. I'm not saying anything that Minnesota doesn't. They're obviously a very good team. But again, look at all this red against a Premier League squad. I'm getting a little excited is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fun. It's ball that it reminds you a little bit of Carnell ball with numbers high press. Only this time, Critchley wants them to do kind of what John Hackworth wanted them to do at the end of 2024, which is pick their battles correctly and don't, just do balls to the wall pressing, because you don't have a guy like Jared Stroud who can just run like an idiot all over the field for 90 minutes on this team right now. You can't afford, to do that kind of Carnell ball, energy drink soccer, however you want to call it. But what you can do is initiate tactical presses like this and get numbers forward in those types of moments when you have your quarterback sitting in the pocket and Edouard Leuven with time on the ball. You can get numbers forward and you can afford to do that. And so that is a very promising sign for 2026. It's also a promising sign for what the philosophy of this club is right now, and the types of players they'll be bringing in to, actuate that philosophy in 2026. So it's not necessarily only about who's on the current roster. You have to think about the big picture too. This is a club that's not going away after this year or next. They're going to be here for, hopefully decades. So building this kind of philosophy, is very important stuff.
One other thing I wanted to show, and I didn't point it out when I first showed it, but let's go back to this screenshot, because something else I wanted to show in this one really quickly to point out to people is because you heard David Critchley mention it, and I just want people to see what David Critchley's talking about. And that is the positioning right here of Padelford. The fact that he's inside
inverted fullback
of Celio Pompeu here. Yes, the fact that because that's something I think is fascinating just tactically. You might see it later on if they have another team that sits in a low block. But the idea of overloading the middle of the pitch, if you can't win the middle of the pitch, and he said it in the presser, we weren't expecting to win the middle of the pitch. So one of the ways you mitigate that is by because you're still going to need to get bodies in there, is by overloading, the channels right outside of the middle with players they wouldn't expect. And one of the ways doing that is inverted fullbacks. It's not a new thing. It's something that Pep Guardiola, made all the rage in Europe back when he first took over Bayern. David Alaba was the kind of his first player that he really made magic with that happen. And so this set for me was fascinating because of where Padelford was. And I wanted to make sure we took a little look at that. Speaking of offensive moments from St. Louis City, one other one I wanted to look at, because we talked, can't remember if it was the last episode of Boots on the Ground, if it was the post, or if it was our last post-game show, but we talked about kind of getting attackers in all 5 areas: central, the 2 channels, the 2 flanks. There's 5 areas you want to attack. And there was a moment that I want to take a look at here for everybody. And this was a little bit later on against the Loons. And this is Padelford in an attack. And before we keep looking on with this video, know that off screen to the left, Celio Pompeu is here. So much like a lot of these things that we're talking about, if you drew a circle along this back line here, you would see 6 red jerseys for St. Louis City SC. But now, instead of Leuven with the ball, it's Padelford with the ball. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because exactly what we were just talking about, Will, which is if you kind of go through it and you look at it, there's a man on the right flank, there's a man in the right channel, there's a man centrally in João Klaus, there's another man in Thomas Ostrak covering that channel, and then you got you got Hartel in this wide area, but also I didn't even highlight it. You do have Celio Pompeu even further outside of the left. So you're filling all 5 areas and you're overloading the area where the ball is as well. So Padelford, if he wants to, can kick it out.
This through ball to Ustrak because why did he not?
He tries to hit the through ball to Ustrak, and this defender cuts it out and gets his leg up there, and it's a perfect defensive play. He probably could have put it further out in front of Ustrak. Maybe the defender here on Hartle is able to pinch it off, so that's why he kept it close. But yeah, Padelford does try to get this to the running Ustrak, and it really is a sweet play. But I did kind of want to, but I did think it was interesting to highlight. This is a textbook kind of play, and again, if you can attack with 6, this is why it's so deadly, because you can take the textbook idea of hit every part of the field, but then you can overload one of those 5 areas with that 6th attacker. And that's exactly what City was doing here. And it almost works to a T because they stretched out the back. Again, you got a back 5 in Minnesota. You got 5 along the back here, and then the midfielder here. You've stretched out the back 5 completely. The midfielder now has to pick between the ball or the man, and he picks the ball. He just gets really lucky that Padelford doesn't put an exactly perfect pass, because an exactly perfect pass means that Tomas Ostrak is into green with all the time in the world in a one-on-one with St. Clair. But he gets lucky here. This was a brilliant set by St. Louis City. This is one of the few times they really did spread out and kind of crack down the Loons defense. They just couldn't hit the killer pass.
Yeah. A lot of times you don't really see all 5 channels attacked like this at the same time. But like Rock said, when you have a 5 back, you have to stretch that back line out. So just Conrad Vollum and Celio Pompeu being all the way up on those 2 flanks, it pulls the wing backs out a little further from Minnesota. And what does that cause the center backs to do as a result? Those 3 center backs, they have to spread out a little bit and fill those gaps. And that's where you create the space that Joao Klaus can make a man move on that back line. And it opens up a run for Sung Bin. It opens up a run for Cello. It opens up a run for Tomas Ustrak. It allows Klaus to do kind of the thing that he does as a target 9, which is be a problem for the back line, at least in possession, obviously. And this opens up a beautiful, beautiful little passing lane right here for Tomas Ustrak. I just wish Padelford had gotten him the ball cleanly. It would have been a 1-on-0 opportunity with Dane St. Clair. So very, like Rock said, honestly, it's textbook stuff. This is perfect. The perfect way to break down a low block. But keep in mind, this is going to work against a low block. This is not going to work a lot of times against teams that, kind of play that 4-4-2 where they have numbers on the flanks, because they're able to shift more as a block versus being kind of flat, I guess, on their back line. So, but this is a very good tactical play by David Critchley to kind of play into this.
Although if you are a 4-4-2 team that plays like City and you get your fullbacks up, this could kind of be a perfect play here, because if this fullback's a little bit higher on this spot right here, and you can get it down to Celio, and much like we've seen our center middies, if your center middies aren't dropping, you're still going to create this problem here where you have a runner by your center midi. The issue is, though, against a team that is not playing a full low block, if Padelford gets this pass intercepted, which he does, the counterattack and the potential transition by the attacking team is that much deadlier, and that's why it's so risky. One last look at the Minnesota game, because it does really show you just how they were really able to get offensive in a way that they haven't been in a lot of ways. Because here's another set here, balls way up here on the right side, and again, City's actually got a good job here against what is usually a very set-in Loons defense. But look, the ball's wide, but you got 3-on-3 here. This is not a bad opportunity for St. Louis City SC at all. But unfortunately, they were just completely unable to finish on it, because Celio just gets no good touch on this ball. He's frustrated. I'm frustrated. We're all frustrated. But it does show.
Same exact play happened against Villa, by the way. Exact same play, and Celio whiffed a second time, which is a bummer.
Hard to watch. that was really hard to watch. But but it just shows you what they were able to create against Minnesota, despite the fact that they were completely cut out of the middle for huge chunks of the game. They were able to create things in the channels and in the wide flanks. And at times they were able to actually kind of one-on-one and separate the Minnesota defense. But it just gets down to the biggest problem with this offense. Even when the moments come, they don't have the clinical pass when they need it, because it's not Hartle or Leuven who's executing that pass, or else it would be they'd usually hit it, or they get the ball in a perfect position and they just can't finish.
Yep. Yeah. It's been a tough theme for this entire season. And obviously that didn't change against Minnesota. That resulted in a 1-2 loss. It didn't change against Villa, although I will say against Villa, it was better. It was better.
Let's do one final city circuit. And that was, of course, the unofficial debut. We've been talking about Falun Fall for a long time.
I've been waiting to look at this clip again. I've watched it numerous times since it happened.
I got the longer one this time too. This is the fun thing is we got the longer one now. So let's make sure we got the right thing locked in, and let's go ahead and take a look at the. Oh no, that's not good. There it is. All right. Here is the play, and we got a little bit more of it than I put originally on Twitter. So one thing I do want to focus on, this is me getting super nerdy, because while we're going to talk about this, we can talk about a couple other things, because at the very start of this play, note where Cedric Toyshirt is, William. Note where Cedric Toyshirt is. Cedric Toyshirt is right here. He's over on the right side, and that makes us sad. We don't like when Cedric Toyshirt's on the right side. Boo, Cedric Toyshirt on the right side. Let's get away from that. Don't worry, we do. So we're going to get away from Cedric Toyshirt being on the right side, because slowly, as we work the ball over to the left side, Cedric Toyshirt's slowly going to work over to the central, and we're now going to get our.
This is his quiet space between the lines. That's where he loves to sit. Look at this classic 4-4-2 that Villa are running, and look where Toyshirt's sitting. That is his happy place. We like Cedric there.
Sorry, I skipped forward on accident. But also, again, same thing here. Against Aston Villa, I know it's not a competitive game, so maybe they were getting a little bit more aggressive than you thought. But for me, we just talked about how we don't expect them to be able to play against more talented teams or mid-block teams, and yet even against Aston Villa, I know it's a offensive half possession. They're not pressing you hard. It is kind of looks like a low block, but for me, it jumps out that City's still playing 2 center backs, 1 center midi, and then everybody else is pretty much getting forward, baby. Let's have some fun, because Cedric Toyshirt's here. Thomas Tottenham's high. At this point, this is Kyle Hebert, not Padelford anymore. But everyone's still getting high. You still have, for the most part, 5 guys across the attacking front. And I keep accidentally pressing the wrong button, and I apologize to everybody
what
involved.
is Chris Durkin doing up there, man?
Yeah, Chris Durkin's doing Chris Durkin.
Just having fun, man.
Chris Durkin's just having fun. We can't blame him for that. We all like to have some fun too. So everything kind of centers back out. Everyone, you got the 5 people where they're supposed to be on your attack. Durkin's retreating like he's supposed to be. You know, this is where it gets really fun. We've seen the basic shape of St. Louis City, but even against Villa, they're able to keep a fairly offensive shape. And this is where the magic happens. They work it back to Fayu, and we're going to pause.
Look at the way he opens his hips there to have Villa start shifting to their left. And then he's able to stop his momentum. Now Villa is all sliding to their left, I guess to Falu's right. And as a left-footed center back, he's able to take advantage and split the grain right there. I mean, this is just beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff.
It really is. And then and here's the set again. If you don't believe me, the line here, I don't even need to draw it. It's right there on your screen. 5 St. Louis City players in the attack. This is still pushing 5 forward. This is something we didn't see with Olaf Melberg. This is still, in my opinion, speaks to the aggressiveness of David Critchley and St. Louis City right now. Even against Aston Villa, I know the result doesn't matter, so you can afford to be risky. I still think this matters, that they are still pushing 5 forward, and at this point, they have them outnumbered. And then also, just as we've been talking about on Twitter, just an absolutely gorgeous pass by Falun Fall. Probably because, and my main thing is because all 6 players right here are
he's going to eliminate 6 players,
and he's
right
going to
now
eliminate
with 1 pass.
All of them. And honestly, with how aggressive the right side of the Aston Villa line's playing, he almost takes out 8 with this pass. Like right there, boom. That's 8.
Because of, I'm not sure who that is, that checks into that space and draws a defender in. That eliminates another man.
This right here is Mackay.
Is that Betcher? That's Mackay.
This is either Mackay or no. This would be, because that's Mackay out there.
That's Mackay. That's got to be Betcher.
That's got to be Besher. Yeah, that's Besher, because that's McSorley right there. So
Betcher's actually a really good check into that space there, brings another man in. So that pass ends up eliminating 7 players. I would say Mackay's man is not fully eliminated here.
No, he doesn't.
Definitely 7 eliminated by the time Cedric Toyshirt gets that ball. And now, if Mackay is on his horse, you're on a 5-on-4 situation here. Maybe even a 4-on-3 if this player hypothetically trips and falls like Jay Reed has done before. Not to throw a shot at Jay Reed. My point is just that it happens. So you have lots of options.
Yeah, and then obviously said he gets the ball, and we're going to move forward, and you just got me Tots just in wide open space. And I just like this because they almost scored against an EPL team. Oh! And then McSorley. Oh, way to win the header. Couldn't put much mustard on it. Another, I mean, just this, this is against an EPL team. This is the kind of like little progression that we just haven't seen this year against some of the worst major MLS teams. And so to just get to watch the end of that play was pretty sweet. But obviously I know the big thing that we're focusing on in that play is the pass from Fayou Fall, because how can you not, Will? Everyone's talking about it on Twitter. The clip's doing, absolute gangbusters, and it's really hard to not be excited about him, because we knew that was going to be a huge part of his game. And for him to come out and right out of the gate have that be a part of his game, he shorted a couple passes. It wasn't all perfect, but it was pretty special to watch him open the pass up like that the way he did.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He's a baller. He's going to continue to be a baller. This team is going to be more talented with him on the pitch in terms of progressing the ball. Him and Ustrak and Leuven all on the pitch at the same time. Maybe you add in Timo Baumgartel there. I mean, that is a lot of progression right up the gullet. I mean, that's 4 guys in your kind of central zones on the pitch that can progress the ball very, very well in a variety of ways. Obviously, Baumgartel can play those longer passes to Totland, or whoever the right back is who's up on that flank. Fayou Fall can do what we just watched him do and split the lines. Obviously, we know what Edu Leuven is capable of doing over the top, and Tomas Ustrak gives you an option with boots on the ground to walk it right up the middle of the pitch. Little play on words there. I mean, that is a lot of options with just 4 players to progress the ball to the attacking third. That is music to my ears.
Yeah, it's what they need. This entire time they've shown how much better they can be when they can play out of the back. It's been a big focus for this team in the offseason, and now that you potentially get a healthy Kessler back, finally you get Fayou Fall now to slot in with him, and it's hard not to get excited about what this team can do. That does kind of lead us to our next natural conversation, because there are some rumors going around right now, Will Bratton, because we're talking about adding a new defender, and we're talking about how much his passing can add. But the question is that going to help them score? Because this team still is having issues with scoring. That's been the big thing. I've been focusing on their lack of finishing, not necessarily their lack of buildup. And I think a lot of people, are hoping that there might be a way for them to change that lack of finishing with a big name. There's some rumors going around right now that they could be looking for an addition. People are speculating on what position that could be, the level of that position. Looking at the roster, obviously moves would have to be made for an addition to be made in the first place, but also just going forward, do you think a new addition could be the solve for this offense?
A solve for this offense? No. I mean, it's completely rhythmic for each individual player. Goal scoring is. We've seen it with Joao Klaus. We've seen it with Toyshirt last year. It's completely rhythmic. When they're in that rhythm, they're going to score goals. Right now, Joao Klaus is kind of in that rhythm. Last year, Cedric Toyshirt was in that rhythm. That's just kind of the way it goes with those goal scoring minded players. Now, in terms of roster composition, obviously, Rock is absolutely right. They'd have to move a senior roster player off this roster in order to sign anybody. They have no slots open, no U22 slots, no DP slots, no, I think they have an international slot actually, but they have no senior roster slots. And so there, a lot of things would have to happen just to get a new signing to this team. In my opinion, I don't think it's very likely that we get another. I think it's possible for sure. It's definitely possible, I should say, but I don't think it's all that likely because this team has covered all their needs for the short term. Now, in the winter, you have a lot of contracts expiring. It's going to be a very different looking team after this winter, but it doesn't really make sense to move a ton of players right this current second and try and make a bunch of roster moves for a big time player. That being said, all that to say, the most likely position if you're going to upgrade, if it's going to be an attacker, it's obviously not going to be a Cam. You have Hartle. That's your highest paid player. It's not going to be Sung Bin. You just spent it's not going to be right wing. You just spent $2 million on Sung Bin on the right wing. It's probably not going to be a striker because the Joao Klaus rumors have been put to bed. And Everyone knows that we can get him on a TAM, deal next year. It's a very club friendly deal. He'd be technically underpaid, even though a lot of fans think he's, overrated, whatever. He's still currently technically underpaid by, the types of value that he can bring to a team and his experience and his age and his fitness. And so I don't think it's going to be a striker. That leaves one option, left wing, if it's going to be an attacker. Now, if it's going to be an attacker, that implies maybe Celio Pompeu or Mekhi Joyner might be getting sold at some point, whether that's this year or next year, if you're looking to make a big investment at left wing with a starting attacker, because that's going to move Pompeu to the bench. So if you want Mekhi Joyner to be your second string left wing, then you need to move Pompeu as a result. I don't really think this is that likely. I just don't really see them upgrading over Pompeu in the short term right now in the summer window. That's something that could happen this winter. And so with the rumors saying that it's going to be an attacker that's going to be coming out in the rumors soon, this is what's being reported. It makes no sense to me. I doubt anything's going to come to fruition with that, but it is possible. I've been wrong. Not playing. I've been wrong once or twice. So it's possible, but I find it very unlikely given the roster composition and what this team needs and what they've already done this summer.
Here's my thing. You laid it down perfectly. There's not a lot of roster spots. Are there even starting spots? I think they still want to give chances to certain players, maybe guys with one in red right above their right shoulder, and things like that. Marcel Hartl's got his spot locked in, things like that. To your point, I think the best thing this team can do is become more well-rounded, get a better rhythm, give the players who we know can finish at a higher level. We know, obviously, Klaus this year. We know Hartl at times in his career. We know Bescher. We know Seti. We know these guys can finish better than they're doing this season. Give them more chances. Give them more quality chances. And how do you do that? You create these situations even against teams that aren't sitting in low blocks. You get 6 guys in the attack. And one of the ways you can do this confidently is by this and this being Henry Kessler and Fayu Fall. Yep. And if you can go into next year and this being Henry Kessler, let's put a big HK right here, and let's put a big FF right here. If that's the 2 guys back here, and if this is consistently Thomas Totland, and maybe if this right here is a slightly better left back, I like Pat Elford, but apparently he's not staying here because we give away draft picks to develop your players at this club sometimes. But that's beside the point. You have these guys, and all of a sudden, I feel a little bit better about attacking with 6 and trusting that Leuven's going to put this ball where I need him to. I feel a lot better about this against some of the best attacking teams in MLS if HK and FF are the 2 bodies back here. I feel a lot better about it. I completely
agree. And I do want to say, to your point about letting these players get their rhythm that we know can play better. I mean, this is a season that you have nothing to lose, right? I mean, you're not going to make the playoffs. You have nothing to lose. If you lose the match from making a mistake, oh well. But if you have the opportunity to just dump numbers forward and let Toyshirt score a hat trick, okay, let's do it. Get this guy in rhythm, because these players are going to be very significant to this team in 2026 should they have success. So I completely agree with Rock. I think this was a great piggyback, and I think we've covered this kind of perfectly. To be honest with you, I'm very satisfied with the way this segment has gone.
Eggplant emoji came in early, and I want to get an answer to this question. What would you need to see by season's end to be optimistic of a 2026 playoff appearance? Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't going to surprise you, but I want to see 7 sub appearances by Mekhi Joyner. That's step 1. That's step 1 for me. I want to see 7.
That's your concern for making the playoffs in 2026?
Yes, having one of your most talented and highest potential players getting time this year to the point where you can expect him to be a part of your rotation next year is a huge part in being a 2026 playoff team, in my opinion. Getting Kessler back healthy, getting Fayu Fall and him together, finding out if you have either one of your ideal starting fullbacks going forward next year. Not to crap on anybody on the roster, but as we're talking about this here, you need to have confidence in those fullback spots to be able to run the offensive system you want to and be able to push the numbers forward. I need to see Celio Pompeu have a consistent aspect. I need to see him get the starts. I need to see the organization have the trust in him to consistently start him week in and week out if he's healthy. I need to see him not just be a more direct and more impactful player. I need to see him develop secondary things. If teams are going to take away that cut into his right foot, he's got to be more comfortable getting to his outside foot and being a crosser. He's comfortable being a crosser, but he's got to get comfortable being a crosser in a different type of role. And I have to see something finishing wise from guys like Cedric Toyshirt and Simon Bescher, because I'm fine with those guys, being 20 or 30 minute players behind João Klaus, but they got to put the ball in the back of the net. Cedric Toyshirt finishing a very, very, technical, solid, run of the mill. If you want to be, negative about it, just, standard finish against Aston Villa. That was a huge thing. We got to see a couple more of those from Celio, Seti, and Bescher. I would say right off the bat, those are like 5 things I can think of if I got to be optimistic about next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think goal scoring rhythm is really important, and just seeing this team have confidence on the ball and confidence in whoever's on that back line to defend when they turn the ball over and hustling for each other. I want to see a group of guys that wants to play together. I'm not even going to say any specific names of players that I want to see play or players that I want to see play well specifically. But I want the new guys to get assimilated well. I want to see Falu play well. I want to see Sengbin play well. And should there be another signing, I want to see them play well. Obviously, Padelford probably not staying, but of course I want to see him play well anyway. But that's the most important thing to me. And I want to see just a team that's just willing to just throw it out there. And we're seeing that right now. So right now I have a lot of optimism for 2026. I think the winter is going to give fans a lot of optimism for 2026 regardless, because there's going to be a lot of changes to this roster. It's going to feel fresh. It's going to feel new. It's exciting. You're still going to have your same core players that you love, but you're going to have some new blood in there as well, and some young players probably going to earn some contracts in the winter. So, super, super excited for it.
I'm just saying, Will,
I'm already bleeding optimism.
I can't think of anything that would bring people to watch Boots on the Ground more than if the Nashville game ends with a 2-1 scoreline because Mekhi Joyner scores the game-winning goal.
Well, I don't disagree.
I can't think of it, or not, and not even that, like a 2-2 tie in mid-September. I still think if Mekhi Joyner scoring one of those goals, the reaction from the fan base would be astronomical, because there's just so much potential, and we need attacking punch in this fan base right now. And Mekhi's ability to be from either side. You got Sangbin, and you got some positivity in Celio Pompeu. Let's get him going in the rotation. He was looking good. He was getting some dribbles going against Aston Villa. Yeah, I'm going to keep beating this drum until there's no reason to anymore. I can't help it. And Will's heard enough of me from it. Will's officially heard enough of it.
No, I mean, look, I've heard Rock talk more about Mekhi Joyner than. Yeah, he did. Dude, look.
He looked fine.
You know who impressed me more than anybody in the Villa game, though?
No, Ostrak.
No, but that's actually a good guess.
Brendan
McSorley.
Brendan McSorley. I mean, I'm telling you what, James Milner. Ladies and gentlemen, James flippin' Milner. You're never going to think he's the most impressive player. He's never going to be the fastest player. He's never going to be the most technical player, but he's always going to be just a little bit better than the guy right there in front of him. The guy trying to take the ball from him, he's going to be a little bit better than him. The guy who's faster than him, but trying to catch up to him and steal the ball on a run, he's going to be just a little bit better than him. And you're never going to know why, but it's going to be true.
Brendan McSorley was absolutely balling against Aston Villa. Like, genuinely, I've watched him play. I've been watching a lot of City 2 this year, to be honest. I've been a pretty bad City 2 fan in previous years. I've only watched like probably less than 5 games a year the past 2 years, but this year I've watched a lot. And I have to say, man, Brendan McSorley has impressed me a lot. Him and Mekhi Joyner have been the lifeline of City 2 this year, who have been dominating, by the way. I want to see Brendan McSorley get more minutes with City 2, and maybe, just maybe, if he keeps balling out, I'd love to see him get on that supplemental roster in 2026, because he would be your depth right winger under Sangbin, right? So you would have on the left your starter, whether that's Celio Pompeu or an upgrade, and then Mekhi Joyner. And on the right, you would have Sangbin and McSorley. And so Joyner and McSorley would both be playing significant minutes as the second man in a position with a lot of cardio. Wingers get subbed usually earlier than anybody else in the pitch. So they'd be playing significant minutes in moments that matter. And that's exciting to me. I would love to see that type of thing. And McSorley, he had a kind of like a Hazy type of thing, like a Hazy Larosco situation for me, where a couple of performances that I've seen from McSorley in a short period of time have got me stock way high on Brendan McSorley right now. So I just kind of wanted to give him, his flowers really quickly while I had it. But
while we're talking about the Aston Villa and doing a little roster, the final thing here on the show today, two players who we did not see, who did not get playing time, despite the fact that we saw 26 players, I think, get playing time in last night's game. One of them was Caden Glover, who that's apparently how you're supposed to say his name, which is insane to me.
No, it's not. I disagree. I disagree.
Yeah. You and Justin Horniger, who does a great job for STL Magazine. Me and him were talking yesterday.
He's right. He knows the pronunciation of his own last name.
No,
for sure,
Justin.
I disagree.
No. Justin looked at me and just goes, "I reject that fact." Like Justin.
Same thing with Padelford. I've allowed that one to happen a little more because phonetically it kind of makes sense. But Glover, it's Glover, bro.
The City Media Group is refusing to accept the facts that we're being told about these players' last names, but apparently it's Glover, not Glover. But anyhow. Caden did not play. Jande Silva did not play. So I will ask you this. Are either one of those players or are both those players wearing a City jersey or a City 2 jersey in mid-August?
Jande Silva? Oh, in mid-August?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think Glover could be loaned down to City 2 or even a USL team.
Yes.
To get Joyner up on the supplemental roster. I think that's very probable. I've been saying this since May. I still think this is very probable. To be quite frank with you, I'm kind of surprised and disappointed it hasn't happened yet.
Could they loan out Jande Silva?
I mean, they could, but I doubt it. I mean, it doesn't make sense because you're not going to bring anybody in most likely.
Well, you're not going to play him, I think, so it makes a little sense.
I mean, you're probably not going to play him, but you need the depth.
I mean, that's the one spot you have depth and no injuries right now.
Right now.
Well, forbid
Celio Pompeu snaps his leg against Dallas again.
And then,
injuries happen.
Oh no, who would you have to play then? Mekhi Joyner.
Well, you can't unless you loan Glover down.
Or Simon Becher.
Oh, no. At left wing, please stop it, Rob. Let him play. Put him at striker. I don't care, dude. Just get him off the wings.
If you think we've seen the last of Simon Becher playing out on the wings this year, you're sorely
mistaken. I know.
Sorry, buddy.
But it doesn't make me happy.
And Ansky Lopez Cruz, 2026 will be better. Rich says 2026 couldn't be much worse. By the numbers, Rich is correct. I'm also going to roll with Ansky also being correct. I think 2026 will be better. But a lot of time between then and now, we're going to have to see all the things we just talked about. How are we going to get positive for 2026? We laid out. We have to see improvements. We have to see players playing. We got to see some of these guys get healthy and show us what they're supposed to be. That's the big thing. And then obviously when it comes to the winter, we'll be talking a lot about what we expect and what we need to see happen in the winter. But changes will be coming to the St. Louis City SC roster. So a lot of room between now and 2026 for things to get better. Not a lot of room left in today's episode. This is it for Boots on the Ground. Thank you very much to Will Bratton. Thank you to everyone for joining us late today on a Thursday. It's been a long week in the City stuff. It's been a long week in all kinds of sports with the trade deadline, with Cards baseball and all that stuff going on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tapping in with us on a very long day. If you're coming to us late on the show, or if you want an audio version, you can go to wherever you get your podcasts in the next 12 hours to grab this podcast, or you can just go back and rewatch us here on YouTube because we've been live on YouTube this entire time. It's easy to just jump around here on YouTube. And plus, you get all the graphics, all the videos, all the stats and things we put up. You can see those all here on the full YouTube podcast. But Boots on the Ground will be available wherever you get your podcast if you want to roll with the audio-only version in the future. St. Louis City is off this weekend. They're not playing. A bunch of MLS teams are playing in the League's Cup and things like that. St. Louis City not playing this weekend. They'll be back in action facing off against Nashville the first weekend in August, I guess, though technically this is also the first week in August. The second weekend in August, if you want to get
August
super technical about it, Jesus, Lord Almighty. So we will have another episode of Boots on the Ground next week. We won't have as much video, but we'll have plenty of stats. We'll have plenty of analysis. We'll have some interviews. We'll have some sound from a couple of media scrums and pressers between now and then. So we'll have plenty of things for you guys on Boots on the Ground. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for joining us. Thank you to everybody for watching us live or on the podcast version on STL Sports Central. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell button right here on YouTube. Go to STL Sports Central to check out all of our written coverage for Cardinals, Blues, SLU, and of course, St. Louis City SC, usually speared up by our boy right there, Will Bratton. Will, thank you so much for another incredible episode of Boots on the Ground, sir.
Oh, thank you, Rock. Great job on the production. A lot of fun maps. I love Rock's maps. He does great. Rock does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So give Rock his flowers. He does great here on Boots on the Ground.
Listen. When you got an Italian last name and you talk about maps, you got to make Amerigo Vespucci proud. And I think so far on this podcast, we've been doing it. For Will Bratton, I'm Matthew Rocchio. This has been Boots on the Ground on STL Sports Central. Have a great rest of your day, St. Louis.